What's going on, guys? So this video is specifically to address a video that my good friend Josh the RV Nerd created on his channel talking about space heaters in an RV. What is safe, what's not safe, and why. And we're going to use my Blue Yeti portable battery system right here to help us kind of demonstrate some of the things that he talked about, as well as some of the concerns you need to absolutely be aware of. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so by the time you watch this video, I may or may not have released the videos talking about these Xtreme heaters. These are a product that were sent to me by my channel sponsor, eTrailer.com, who carries these. And these are specifically designed for the RV industry and the boating industry. They are UL, so they are UL listed, which means that they've undergone rigorous testing to ensure fire safety and compliance. But that does not mean that they are exempt from the topic we're talking about today. So you have to keep that in mind. On the left side over here, I have this small mini portable heater, which is actually from the folks over at Amazon. This is an Amazon produced product, and I bought this on Amazon for like $20. Now, the reason why you see all of these is because they all are going to act very differently on the power system you have in your RV. Not so much your home, only because of the number of circuits you have in your home and the less likelihood of you overpowering any one of those circuits with too many appliances. That's really where you have to be cautious, and that's what Josh spoke about in his video. He wasn't saying that just because you have a space heater and you use a space heater that the world is ending and you're going to set your RV on fire. What he was telling you was that oftentimes the number of circuits you have in your breaker panel on your RV are going to be much less than what you have in your home. And because of that, you're going to have typically more things riding each one of those circuits potentially. You could have 4 or 5 appliances plugged into one circuit in your RV because of the limited number of plugs, yet your need to want to be able to run all the things that you typically run at home, like a hair dryer, your microwave, curling irons, things like that. And because of that, you can quickly overwhelm what the circuit is designed for, specifically in an RV. And if we're talking about 20 amp service, you also have to be careful of what it would take to overpower that 20 amp service to the point of popping a breaker or just generating too much heat across a wire for too long of a period of time, thus causing the wire to potentially heat up to a dangerous level. Now, in most cases, you're not going to see these problems occur, mainly because RVIA sets coding on what types of wires, the gauge. You're going to see stranded copper. Usually it's going to be pure copper. And that stranded wire is typically going to be of a slightly larger gauge than even what you might see in residential with solid copper wiring. Now, the reason for this is because of its flexibility, right? You use stranded wire because it's really flexible. It's great in an environment where things are moving. But on the other hand, you also have to keep in mind that it's multiple strands when you're talking about stranded wire, and it can also develop heat quickly. So you typically need to go to a slightly larger gauge of wire to be able to handle voltage drop as well as heat formation. Now, whenever we are talking about space heaters, the point that Josh was making is that a relatively small space heater could actually use the same amount of wattage as a very large space heater. I could have a 3-foot tall space heater for a home, and it's probably going to use 1500 watts. Then I could have this really small space heater that also uses 1500 watts. And a lot of people assume that if you see something small, it's automatically going to use less wattage, and that is not the case. 1500 watts is 1500 watts, and when you're plugging that into an outlet, especially if that outlet has other things plugged into it, over time, even if you're not going to the peak of what that outlet is designed to be able to handle, 15 or possibly 20 amps, most of the time it's going to be 15 amps, you could absolutely be right at that precipice of possibly overloading a breaker. And what you do at that point is tend to heat up the wiring. You tend to create heat generation. That heat generation can become problematic, especially if you're dealing with an RV that might have some issues with how the wiring was ran, or possibly could have had a wiring that was chafed, or possibly just not have been wired well. I mean, that exists. There's a lot of times you open up an RV and there are tons of extra slack of wiring, which can also create heat. Now, if you have a wire that's the perfect length, the perfect gauge for the type of voltage and amperage going through it, then you are generally going to be safe, even if you're using an appliance or a product that uses at the higher end of wattage or pulling the higher end of amperage through that wire. But when you start looking at how some manufacturers might have extra length of wire, only because they didn't cut it down properly to size, they may have used a smaller gauge wire than what was recommended or even what was required. That's where you start running into problems when you run higher amperage equipment, higher voltage equipment off of a wire that might be too small. You're going to create a problem to where the wire itself becomes the fuse. The wire itself is going to heat up to the point to where it will fail and possibly cause a fire. And if it does fail because of heat, it will very likely cause a fire. Now, again, you have several products in front of you. This specific one is the one I use inside of my RVs whenever it gets really cold, and it's going to be cold throughout the day, and I want to try to mitigate the damage that that cold weather can cause down here, because believe it or not, we do have freezes, and the freezes can damage things down here. This specific heater, again, from Amazon, it's an Amazon Basics product. If it has the wattage on it, which it probably does, check this out. 520 watts. This is what I consider to be one of the safer products you can use on the market. It will tip over and shut off. It has safety features built into it. It has a few different thermostatic settings on it as well, so you can adjust it to how hot you want it or how long it's going to stay on until it actually shuts off. You have some fan speed controls. What you don't have control of on this, though, is the specific temperature point that it will shut off. It's just basically some temperature settings that are set throughout here to shut off at a certain point. Now, my only concern with this product is that it doesn't specifically tell you the temperature that the thermostat needs to be set at to shut off. And there's nowhere in the instructions that specifically tell you that either. Hence the reason we're going to use the Blue Yeti, so we can see if there's going to be a true difference between wattage based on the different heat settings. Now, when it comes to the Xtreme heater product, you need to be very careful in terms of which one you specifically get for your application. So on their website right now, and you can see they have a 400 watt version, they have a twin pack of 400 watt versions, a 600 watt, a twin pack of 600, and then an 800 watt XXX heat version that's designed for a boat or bilge. And then you can even get a double pack of those as well. Plus they have the one here that's on the right, which is designed for the interior space. And it has two settings. So you can actually have it set so it's either 750 watts or 1500 watts. And for 99.99% of applications in an RV, I would say 750 watts is all you want to set it for if you're going to be using this to keep the inside of your RV above freezing. And again, it may only keep a certain section depending on the divided spaces, doors, and things you have going on in your RV. What I love is the fact that it is UL listed, so that's a very, very important part of this as well. It means it has been tested to be able to perform without causing fires or other related issues. That doesn't mean it never will, it just means that it's gone through the testing process. Now, when you look at both of these products, or all three of these products, again, the lower the wattage to achieve your goal is ideally what you want to do. This to me is just a really, really good idea, just because we know that it should not exceed, what, 560 watts, which is going to be important. Let's kick on the Blue Yeti real quick. We're going to plug, first of all, the Amazon product in. And you can see this thing's brand new. I just got this one in. I actually have tons of these things. I use them just about everywhere in spaces that I need to protect against freezing. We'll go ahead and plug this in. All right, so now we're going to turn the AC on. So AC power is going to this. I can go ahead and turn this on now. You can see the fan as well as the heater is on. And we can see currently that it's pulling. It's dropping down a little bit, 500, and it's dropping down even more. 513, 512, 510. Okay, roughly 500 watts of power. If I drop the heat down to level 1, you can see that that's dropping off pretty dramatically. So it's dropping to 453, 449, 48. And that continues to drop. So we are at about 439 watts whenever we are utilizing this on its lowest speed. We put it on the center speed, number 2, and it's going up. What are we going to get up to here? So about 465 watts when it's on number 2. So that's a very, very efficient product. And then we have the ability to turn the fan on right here, which it's only fan only at this mode, so it's not heat. And you can see it's not even registering, even on the 3rd speed here, on fan alone, it's not even registering wattage usage. That's how low it is. And you can feel the air pretty well. So this is an example of something that I would consider to be very safe, me personally speaking, in an RV. So even on the highest level right here, if I tip this thing over on its side, you see the light flashing on it right there. The heater portion's shut off at this point. So there's no heat coming out of this unit at all. And the whole thing now just shut off. So that is a great feature, of course, to have, and a lot of heaters are going to have that feature. I think it's actually required here in the US on these portable space heaters. But for me personally, this right here is a product I like, and this is one that I use. I actually bought 4 more of them this year. I had like 6 of them already, but these are one of those products that I can have multiple of these devices spread out, and I don't necessarily have to worry about overloading a circuit. Shoot, if I have 2 of these on one, I'm going to be using under 1,000 watts for 2 of these, which gives me the ability to diversify where I space these. Again, the challenge you deal with is the fact that you don't know at what point they're going to shut off. They could essentially run forever because there's nothing specifically in here that says I need it to shut off when it gets to 50 degrees inside of the RV. So just keep that in mind. These right here are designed specifically for you to use it as a heater, like a normal heater if you want to, or to use this as a means of keeping your RV, whether it's the basement area or the internal area, the inside area, from freezing. So now we're going to unplug this one. We're going to plug in one of these. Okay, so the minute I plugged it in, it turned on. I hear the fan running. Again, it's not registering any wattage usage right now because the fan doesn't use very much power at all. And then it's got a thermostat specifically on it. And you can see here, check it out. So it shows you if it's green, it's on standby. Red, it's on heating. Orange on cooling, and green blink is a self-test. So right now, this thing is in standby. And what it's going to be designed to do is it will turn on heating if it gets to near freezing. This will turn on and it will heat the space up automatically with the onboard thermostat. That is really cool, and it's an effective way to help prevent things from potentially freezing inside of your RV, hopefully. And it all depends on, again, where you place some of this stuff. So right now, I'm not in an area where it's going to be below freezing, so I can't really test it specifically for that. But this is designed for those environments. Again, don't get one that is massive only because you want to get the most powerful thing out there. I would say for most people, the 400 or 600 watt version of this would be more than enough for what their applications are. With something like this, I would say keep it at 750 watts if you're going to be using it inside of an RV environment, mainly because you know you're not going to be taxing the wiring system. You're not going to be risking too much heat formation in the wire itself. But for the most part, again, in most cases, I don't think that you're going to have a heck of a lot to worry about, even if you're running a higher wattage version, so long as you're very careful and you understand what else is on those circuits, and if you truly trust the wiring in your RV. As many people out there that will criticize how RVs are manufactured, there's a lot of people that put all their faith in assuming that their specific RV doesn't have a specific problem, like a wire that went through a cord, or the manufacturer possibly skimping out and using the wrong gauge wire for the 110 voltage, or all of the wiring inside of their RV might be slightly off. So keep that in mind and understand that when you're in an RV, it is a lot about risk mitigation. And a lot of people will use things like this in their RV, even when they're not in their RV, when it's in storage, just to prevent things from freezing. So that's another scenario. When you're in your RV and you're staring at the appliance, you can typically tell if something bad's happening, unless, of course, it's happening in a wall or behind something you can't see. But whenever we talk about using equipment in an RV, understand all of those things that you're concerned about with owning an RV period, you could be putting to the test when you're putting too much trust that everything was done perfectly and that your wiring is not going to be an issue if you plug in something that uses higher current. So just keep that in mind. I sure hope this video is educational. I love Josh's video. I think it was a very relevant video, and it should put a little bit of fear into people about using things like space heaters in their RV, especially just because they think something's smaller, it's using less power. That is a very, very wrong way to think about space heaters, because again, the vast majority of space heaters out there are going to be between 1,000 and 1,500 watts whenever they're on. And you have to keep in mind that just because it's small doesn't mean it's using less power. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. Please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below, let me know your thoughts, and we'll talk to you again very soon.